recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the topic of today's important hearing to the witnesses. I enjoyed speaking with you briefly before the hearing, and again, thank you for making the trip to Washington to discuss this important issue. And it's one that's largely unknown on a technical and a practical level to many in this country, even in Congress. And this issue is one that I assume will be abused by foreign governments and or criminal actors, and hopefully there is a distinction still between those. Take the UK, for instance, a country with a proud history of protecting liberties, of respecting the rule of law, adhering to due process, bedrocks of Western civilization. That country today has protected and built a surveillance state. They spy on their own citizens. They arrest people for posting various things online. They monitor their own citizens' public communications and public posts. It's something that's quite concerning. And under this particular issue that we're discussing today, I do want to know, just technically speaking, Ms. Landau, can you just explain to us how the communications that are covered, that we're discussing today, how are they collected, how are they stored, and then how can they be accessed in the future?
So the current Google architecture says that if I have 3 devices that I've made fit this advanced data protection, that when I upload something to the iCloud, it's essentially a message that I am going to send to myself because I might pick it up on another one of my devices. And I've encrypted it end to end. All of my devices know the encryption key, and I authenticate to the devices before I pull it down from the iCloud. So it's sort of like it's just hanging out in the iCloud, hanging out. Apple doesn't have the key, nobody has the key, just I have the key. And so that's the protection for it.
Is the UK seeking to collect the data of 2 parties who are exclusively in the UK, or is it looking to protect? Okay, explain.
When they're I think you're probably better set.
All right, Ms. Powell.
Yes, with this technical capability notice, they're seeking to open up a backdoor, so the option to collect data. And then under other surveillance powers that they have, they can collect data from anyone in the world. Okay. So they have both outward-facing powers and inward-facing to the UK.
And then hypothetically, let's say in the future or present, could federal law enforcement request information from a foreign country like the UK to receive communication files that involve American correspondence?
Yes, I believe that is possible, although I may defer that to some of my other panelists who better understand the American regulations, because I think there are some prohibitions.
I'm not talking about regulations. I'm talking about
practically yes.
Speaking, that action would be feasible, correct?
That's right, because the UK absolutely will have Americans' data in the intelligence that it collects.
So it could also be reasonable to assume this is a bypass of Fourth Amendment protections, potentially, if it was motivated by the wrong actors, correct?
Again, it potentially could be, in theory,
Okay.
there's the possibility.
Now,
If I could add something here, may I?
I was getting ready to, go to you. Yes, sir.
So the statute wouldn't permit the U.S. to task the U.K. to listen in on an American. That order would be illegal under the statute. But what happens is Americans communicate with people outside the United States all the time.
It doesn't permit it, but it enables it.
It enables it through this kind of incidental collection. You're familiar with this
Correct.
through the 702
Absolutely.
program. So if I'm talking to a foreigner abroad who's the target of the UK surveillance order served on Apple, my communications will be collected as well. And then there's rules about when those communications can be shared back to the United States.
Right. So let me follow up with that. You mentioned earlier this is the golden age of surveillance. What are ways that you believe the Cloud Act could be reformed to ensure that imminent threats are able to be identified and stopped without eroding the civil liberties protections that we're discussing?
So I think in addition to requiring that the foreign country have judicial authorization, that there ought to be a rule that people get notice when they've been surveilled. We have that rule in the United States, and you don't get notice that happens before the investigation is finished. You get notice when it's done. Yep. So I think that would go a long way. And also transparency and the ability of providers to tell their own government that they've received an unlawful order.
Sure. My time's expired. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.